Well, hello plant lovers, it is Matthew in Melbourne. Thank you very much for finding me. I try to grow here cold, cool, intermediate orchids here in Melbourne, Australia, either outdoors or indoors or not at all. So if that sounds like your bag, do hit subscribe. I post every week and am a complete amateur. And this week it is kind of Cattleya Revisited, which is the long lost novel of Evelyn Waugh, because I made a video a few weeks ago about growing Cattleyas in a Cold Climate, which was Nancy Mitford's great lost novel. And this is a plant I featured and it's just burst into bloom again. So I just have to show you that because it's so beautiful. And the thing about this is the most delicate fragrance, just like a rose. Isn't it a beautiful flower? Now, we went into this last time, so I won't go into too much detail. Quite a complex megamix. It's a Brassiolalia Cattleya with so many different bits of DNA floating around. But one of the key things is that, as you can see, it's quite a small plant, quite compact and orange flowered. And these compact orange flowered plants tend to do quite well in a cooler climate because they often have a lot of Cattleya coccinea ancestry in them, which is quite a cool climate Cattleya. And this one certainly does. It's got quite a large percentage of that. So what I've figured out from lots of growers in Melbourne is that that is a type used in hybrids that does very well for my conditions outside all year, dealing with quite chilly winter minimums, I must say. But anyway, it has just produced a new growth, which immediately had a flower. And there is another growth here, which also has a flower. So there we are. This Cattleya is triumphant. And I'm so thrilled to be able to perhaps be in a position where I can have blooming Cattleyas in pots outside all year, kind of with not much effort. But that is not why we're here today, plant lovers. Oh no. Also in that video, we looked at this beast. Look at that, goodness me. And this is, I think, a primary hybrid. I can't remember now, I'll have to double check. And it is called Cattleya Claesiana Flamea. And one of its ancestors is a cold climate Cattleya. And it bloomed for me for the first time, and there is the evidence. There is the spent flower spike. I'm so excited that it flowered. But as you can see, it's in a terracotta pot, which I live for. However, it is going quite crazy and needs to come out of this pot, I think, before things get to a desperate state. It grows like the clappers. There are new growths appearing throughout the year on this. It's such a vigorous plant. It almost bloomed last year, but then the sheath just failed at the last minute. This spike did have 2 buds, but one of them failed. However, I was just happy to get anything out of this. I've had it as a seedling for about 5 years, and bless its heart, you can actually see right in the heart of the plant, the little origin of it, the 2 little leaves there, which are quite beautiful. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is repot it into the basket it was kind of hanging in. So because I was just sick of this orchid, I just put it outside and I shoved it in Exhibit A, this Cattleya basket, and I just put the pot in there and hung it up out here all year dealing with the winter because I just couldn't deal with the plant anymore. I was sick of it not doing anything. And it kind of grew and sort of loved it and then flowered for me. So what I've decided to do is actually just pot it into this basket, which seems logical. So I'm going to line the basket with a little bit of loose cocoa fiber and then just pot the orchid up in quite loose bark, which should keep it happy. Now, people often ask, how do you get a very potted plant out of its terracotta pot? Because as you can see, the roots do cling. So what I've done with this plant is I've soaked it for about 4 hours in a bucket of water, which I'll show you now. So I got the water up to the top of the pot height so that all the roots are getting soaked and they are all just quite easily lifting off where they were quite firmly stuck before. So that is good news because all of these roots are quite active. So what I think we'll do now is turn the camera over and see if I can get this out. We might have to lose the pot, but that's okay. And we're going to pot this up. Wish me luck. Let's go. And so this is why we're outside today, plant lovers, because we are going to get messy and have to do some smashing. And I might just move this, which is a wonderful Isocylus aurantiacus, which is just waiting to be repotted out of its horrible plastic pot. Anyway, not for today's video. Right, so here is the plant, and let's see how we go disentangling these roots. So you see they're quite well entrenched. and I really don't want to lose any. Oh no, they're coming off quite well. There we are. Goodness, look at that. It's really an amazing sight, isn't it? Come on, little roots. There we are. Excellent. You know what? This plant too is so vigorous, I'm actually not that worried about potentially damaging any of these. Not that I want to deliberately, but this plant just goes for it. Now, we've got some roots doubling back in there, which means I am going to smash the pot. We've got some new ones just beginning to emerge there, so we'll just ease those off. And that one there. And that one just beginning to make a break for it. Ease you off, my little friend. Right. All we need now is a blunt instrument to hack off the pot. There we go. And now let's just crack the other side and not damage any roots. There we are. How did we go? Off it comes. Goodness me, look at all the roots in there. Heavens. There we are. And there we are. Miraculous. So I must say, soaking it really did make that relatively painless. Now, there's basically no medium left in this little ensemble, so I'm not really going to do much with that other than just plonk it in the basket as we go. So we've got all these new roots coming from the new growths, which will propel the plant into its next incarnation. All right, let me just clear up this mess and we'll start potting it in the basket. Okay, here's some just bagged coconut fibre. I just want to line the basket with just a little bit of fibre just to stop the medium falling through, because as you can see, quite large gaps in the slats. So this will just help us, they look like shoulder pads. So this will just give just a little bit of a base for the large bark, just to stop it falling out of the bottom, which we do not want. It doesn't need to be too dense. There we are. Right, now bark. So there we are. I'm just using quite large bark, and I'm just going to sprinkle a bit of that in the bottom just to give us a base for the plant. There we go. And now I'm literally just going to plonk it in. A little easier said than done, getting it through the wire supports. But there we are. How are we? Let's get that around there. Anything catching? Right. I think that's the optimum position. And now I will just backfill it. There we are. And hopefully those roots will pretty quickly get themselves entwined and attached to the basket, and it will stabilize itself in its new home. And now, purely for aesthetics, you see the crown of the old sort of pot hide is still sitting a bit above the level of the basket. I am just going to make a little halo of old sphagnum just to disguise that a little bit. So purely for aesthetic purposes, for no other reason. Certainly doesn't need sphagnum. And this is just old sphagnum that I have from plants that, alas, are no longer with us, that didn't get a chance to enjoy the sphagnum themselves. And there we are. I think quite a successful operation. Last thing, a little bit of slow release fertilizer just to get it happy in its new home, and a little sprinkle of mycorrhizal fungi. I'm not quite sure whether or not the particular spores in this are going to be suitable for something in a hanging basket, but you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mycorrhizal fungi can only do good things, not bad. So it either will do something or it won't, but it doesn't hurt the plant. There we are. So there we are, plant lovers. You can see why we're outside today. Unwieldy, wet, bulky, bit of orchid maintenance, but there we are. Now, I have high hopes for this plant. You will be the first to know when it blooms next year or next time, whenever it might choose to. There are lots of new growths just maturing. There's one there, there's one there. There's at least 2 or 3 others just beginning to poke out. It is such a rapid grower, this baby. So I've given it a good drench, and I will give it a liquid feed in a few days as well, just to settle it in. But back it goes to the spot it was quite happy in, hanging up there. And there we are, Cattleya Repot 101. I was very pleased to see that not many, in fact, there was only one little bit of a root that was stuck to the terracotta pot. So there we are. Now, generally you can remove a plant from the terracotta pot without having to smash it, but that had been in there literally for years, probably 4 years actually, 3 or 4 years. So usually you would repot something a little sooner and it wouldn't be that enmeshed in the pot. Anyway, I sacrificed the pot. Not such a great loss. But for my newly very happy Cattleya Claesiana Flamea, I hope all's well in your world. It's sunny and gorgeous here, thank goodness. A great time to repot Cattleyas as they're putting on new roots and new growths and really loving life at the moment. So if you're in Melbourne, it's certainly a good time to be doing that. If you want to know what I'm doing next week, you'll have to hit subscribe. I post every Friday and my amateur ramblings are just that. But wherever you are, I hope all's well and I look forward to seeing you next week.